Welcome to the 13th lecture on representations of finite groups. In this lecture, we are going to continue our study of the centralizer algebra. So let us begin with this more general result and then we will continue about Gelfand pairs. So let phi from G to GLV be a representation of a group G. Then phi is multiplicity free if and only if the centralizer algebra of phi, that is Hom G phi phi, is commutative. Proof: by Marquet's theorem, we can write our representation space as follows. We can write V as a finite direct sum of these subspaces, in fact G invariant subspaces Vk's, where each Vk can be further written as some direct sum of dk copies of Wk, where W1, W2, so on, and Wn are inequivalent and irreducible. Inequivalent and irreducible. So basically, we are just clubbing up the equivalent representations together. Okay, so this dk is basically the multiplicity with which Wk appears as a constituent in V. Now let us try to understand elements of the centralizer algebra. So let us take an element. So let T belong to Hom G phi phi. Then by definition we have that phi G times T is same as T times phi G for every G in the group G. Alright. Now if you apply this on any of the invariant subspaces Vk, further, so phi G T of therefore some Vk is going to be T phi G of Vk, which implies what? Now notice that Vk is an invariant subspace. Vk will go into Vk under the action of the group G. Therefore, phi G of Vk is again Vk. So, which implies that phi G of T of Vk is same as T of Vk, since Vk is G invariant. But what does it imply? This implies that phi G then keep T of Vk invariant. Okay, so therefore T maps a G invariant subspace into G invariant subspace. T maps Vk to some Vl. Thus one can view the morphism T from the representation space V to V as made up of block morphisms, as T made up of block morphisms TKLs, okay, where this TKL goes from Vk to Vl. And again this is a morphism. Now recall that each Vk is again a direct sum of dk many copies of the irreducible constituents Wk. Therefore, each block TKL can be further written as a block morphism. Further, each block TKL can be written as TKL is again made up of blocks TKL and let us call it some k prime L prime, where TKL k prime L prime goes from WK prime to WL prime, where WK prime and WL prime are the irreducible constituents of Vk and Vl respectively. If k not equals to L, then the irreducible constituents of Vk are inequivalent to the irreducible constituents of Vl, right? Then by Schur's lemma, each subblock of TKL, that is each TKL k prime L prime is 0, because Schur's lemma says that if we have two unequal and irreducible representations, then the only morphism between them is a trivial morphism. Then by Schur's lemma, each subblock of TKL is 0, and which implies that actually the block TKL itself is 0 if k not equal to L. Thus T is the diagonal block morphism. T can be written as T11, T22, so on, Tnn, and 0 elsewhere. So we will use this information now to prove the proposition. Recall that Vk is direct sum of dk copies of Wk, where Wk is an irreducible constituent, and Tkk is a morphism from Vk to Vk. Again, applying the same process, if we take any irreducible constituent Wk and apply Tkk on that, it has to go to another copy of Wk. Therefore, the morphism Tkk is also further made up of blocks. Thus, Tkk is again made up of blocks. Let us write them as Tkk k prime L prime, all right, where each of these subblocks Tkk k prime L prime is again a morphism, so it's in Hom G of the irreducible constituent Wk. Now, since Wk is irreducible, again by Schur's lemma we know how such morphisms look like. They are simply scalar multiple of the identity. So by Schur's lemma, each of this Tkk k prime L prime is a scalar matrix. That is alpha times identity for some alpha in C. That is, each Tkk looks something like this. So the scalar alpha 1 times identity, alpha 1 2 times identity, alpha 1 dk times identity, and so on, alpha dk 1 identity, alpha dk identity. Okay, where the size of the identity matrix here is precisely degree of the irreducible representation Wk. Thus, this Tkk we can actually identify with a dk by dk matrix over complex numbers. We will write it as a remark later on. All right. So now come back to the centralizer. Thus, having understood the structure of a morphism T in Hom G phi phi, we see that the algebra Hom G phi phi is commutative if and only if each diagonal block of T has size 1. That is, dk is precisely 1. That is to say, the representation phi is multiplicity free. This proves the proposition. Let me write a remark here which follows from the proof of the preceding proposition. Remark: if I write V as a direct sum of Vk's, as in the proposition k from 1 to n, where each Vk is this direct sum of irreducible constituents Wk's dk many, then what is this home G of Vk? This can be identified with the dk by dk matrix algebra, M dk times dk c. It just follows from the proof. Further, home G of the original representation Vv can be identified as direct product of certain matrix algebras, because each morphism in home G Vv was made up of these blocks, okay, and tk, t11, t22 and so on, tkk and tnn. So this is isomorphic to a direct product of matrix algebras. Product M dk cross dk c, where k go from 1 to n. Let us apply the preceding proposition to Gelfand pair. So if G is a group and H a subgroup of the group G, then we have an action sigma from G to the symmetric group on set of left cosets of H in G. The pair GH is called a Gelfand pair if the centralizer algebra of the associated permutation representation is commutative. If home G sigma tilde is commutative. But the preceding proposition says that the centralizer algebra of a representation is commutative if and only if the representation is multiplicity free, that is, each irreducible factor appears exactly once, if at all it appears. Thus GH is a Gelfand pair if and only if the permutation representation sigma tilde is multiplicity free. Now to give more examples of Gelfand pairs, let us define what is a symmetric Gelfand pair. Let sigma from G to S of x be a transitive group action, and let omega be an orbital of this action. Recall what an orbital is. Orbital means it is an orbit of the twofold diagonal action of sigma on x cross x. Then we say that omega is symmetric, that is, the orbital is symmetric if omega is same as omega transpose, where we define omega transpose simply as the pairs xy in x cross x such that yx is in omega. Notice that since omega is an orbital, omega transpose is also an orbital. Since omega is an orbital, it follows that omega transpose is also an orbital. Notice that the diagonal delta, okay, that is simply xx such that x is in X is an orbital in x cross x, is an orbital in x cross x, since the action is transitive, since the action sigma is transitive. In fact, delta is symmetric. It's a symmetric orbital, that is delta is same as delta transpose, just follows from definition. Also observe that corresponding to each orbital omega, one associated a matrix A omega. So observe that the matrix A of omega transpose is same as the matrix A of omega transpose. Thus omega is a symmetric orbital, if and only if A omega is a symmetric matrix. We can now define what is called a symmetric Gelfand pair. So definition, so let G be a group and H a subgroup of G, G be a group and H a subgroup of G. Let sigma from G to symmetric group on left cosets of H in G be the usual action. Then the pair GH is called a symmetric Gelfand pair if each orbital of sigma is symmetric. If each orbital of sigma is symmetric. The term here might be little misleading, so when I say it's a symmetric Gelfand pair, it's not evident that it is a Gelfand pair. It need to be checked. Okay, so the definition of symmetric Gelfand pair is about the symmetricness of the orbitals, and we will show that a symmetric Gelfand pair is in fact a Gelfand pair, that is the centralizer algebra of the corresponding permutation representation sigma tilde is indeed commutative. Let us look at some examples. Notice that the action of G on G mod H is of course transitive, because if you are given two cosets, say XH and YH, then the group element could be YX inverse. So sigma of YX inverse will take XH to YH, right? So it's obviously a transitive action. So if the action is too transitive, then my claim is that it is a symmetric Gelfand pair. So let H be a subgroup of a group G such that the action of G on G mod H is too transitive. Now recall that an action of a group on a set is too transitive if and only if it is of course transitive and the number of orbitals is 2. So thus in this case the number of orbitals of sigma are going to be 2, and we know what they are. One is a diagonal and other is a complement of diagonal. Then sigma from G to symmetric group on G mod H has precisely 2 orbitals, namely the diagonal delta and the complement of the diagonal, that is x cross x minus the diagonal delta. It is trivial to check that both delta and its complement are symmetric. So thus in this case GH is a symmetric Gelfand pair. Let us see a non-trivial example, example number 2. So let n bigger than or equal to 2 and X be the set of all 2 element subsets of the set 1, 2, so on n. Then the symmetric group Sn, then the symmetric group symmetric group Sn acts on the set X, and we denote it by, let us again say, by sigma from Sn to the symmetric group on the set X by, so sigma will take any permutation tau, and now it has to act on the set X. So it will take a two element set, say I comma j, okay, and where will it map? It should map it to another two element subset. So that's simply the two element set tau of I and tau of j. So one can easily check that it's an action, it's a homomorphism from Sn into Sx. Since Sn action on the set 1, 2, so on, n is 2 transitive, it follows that sigma is transitive because we are taking two element subsets. So now by orbit stabilizer theorem, we have that the symmetric group Sn modulo the stabilizer at this point of X, namely take these two element subset n minus 1 comma n. This is in bijection with the orbit of n minus 1 comma n under the action of Sn, but the action is transitive, so orbit is whole of X. In fact, we see that the stabilizer at the two element subset n minus 1 n is symmetric group on the remaining symbols 1, 2 up to n minus 2. So that is Sn minus 2 times the symmetric group on two symbols, which is isomorphic to S2. So this is isomorphic to S2. Thus X is in bijection with Sn mod Sn minus 2 times S2. This allows us to view the action sigma of Sn on the set X as a coset action, which we again denote by sigma. It's a map from Sn to symmetric group on this Sn mod Sn minus 2 times S2. We claim that the pair Sn comma together with the subgroup Sn minus 2 cross S2 is a symmetric Gelfand pair. That is, we need to show that all the orbitals of this action are symmetric. Notice that the coset action of Sn on Sn mod Sn minus 2 times S2 is a transitive action. Therefore, the diagonal is always an orbital and which is clearly symmetric. We call this a trivial orbital. Our claim is to show that any non-trivial orbital is also symmetric. We claim that any non-trivial orbital of sigma is also symmetric. Let omega be a non-trivial orbital of sigma, that is, omega is an orbit of the induced two-fold diagonal action on X cross X. So elements of omega are going to be two element subsets of the set X, okay, and since it's non-trivial, so these two element subsets are such that they are distinct. So take a typical element. So let us take this pair Ij and Kl, this be an element of omega. The set Ij is not same as the set Kl. So what is the possibility? That means the indices I and j both are different from k and l, or at least one of the indices I and j is different from k and l, right? If I, j, k and l are all distinct, then take this permutation tau, product of two cycles, ik and JL. Then this is of course an element of the group Sn. Then tau, which I define like this, maps the element Ij Kl to Kl and Ij. This implies that the element Kl Ij, this is also an element of omega. But observe that what is this? This is actually the transpose of the original element. This is Ij Kl is transpose, right? So in this case, if you take any element of omega and take its transpose, it again falls in omega. Let us consider the other case. Suppose that the two element subsets Ij intersection with Kl is non-empty. Then they have exactly one index in common, because if they have both the indices in common, then it is the same set and it falls in diagonal, but we are taking a non-trivial orbital. Let's say I is equals to k, then the element, take tau equals to JL, maps the original element in the orbital Ij Kl to IL Ij. This implies that the other element, which is IL Ij, is again in the same orbital. But at the same time, notice that this element IL Ij is actually the transpose of the original element, because in this case I is k. Hence, each orbital of sigma is symmetric, and the pair, the symmetric group Sn together with the subgroup Sn minus 2 times S2 is a symmetric Gelfand pair. Let us now show that every symmetric Gelfand pair is in fact a Gelfand pair. Okay, so this gives us quite a big supply of Gelfand pairs. Let GH be a symmetric Gelfand pair, then GH is in fact a Gelfand pair. To show that GH is a Gelfand pair, we have to show that the centralizer algebra of the permutation representation of the coset action is commutative. So let sigma from G to symmetric group on left cosets of H in G be the coset action, and let us say omega 1, omega 2, so on, omega k be the orbitals of this action. Since GH is a symmetric Gelfand pair, each orbital omega I is symmetric. Recall that A of omega 1, A of omega 2, A of omega k form a basis for the centralizer algebra Hom G sigma tilde as a vector space over C. Thus, any A belonging to Hom G sigma tilde is of the form A equals to summation alpha I A of omega I from 1 to k. Since each A omega I is a symmetric matrix, the scalar multiples are symmetric matrices, and therefore their sum is a symmetric matrix, which implies that the centralizer algebra Hom G sigma tilde consists of symmetric matrices. This implies that A is symmetric. My claim is that if you have an algebra consisting of symmetric matrices, then it is commutative. Let A and B be two elements of the centralizer algebra, home G sigma tilde sigma tilde. Then the product is again in this algebra and hence is symmetric, right? So therefore it is same as AB transpose, but that is same as B transpose into A transpose. But B and A are also in the algebra, so they are also symmetric, so that is same as B into A. That is, the centralizer algebra is commutative, and that is what means to say that the pair GH is a Gelfand pair. I will stop this lecture here. Thank you.